when you fully understand what Policy as Code is. So when you're embracing ruthless automation and you're creating the right enforcement gates in your CI/CD pipeline, you need to be able to define compliance and policy requirement. And of course, since you're embracing GitOps, you know that everything must be code. That means that all your configuration settings, gates, policy rules, and thresholds for alerting or preventing action to be taken by your teams must be in code as well. That's where Policy as Code and Compliance as Code come in. You'll usually see three main categories of Policy as Code types. So let's take a look at the three main categories of Policy as Code. First, you have operational policies, preventing overspending of funds, limiting the volume of deployments, scaling all deployments at a specific time of day, for example. Then you have security-related policies, enforcing microsegmentation, defining what users get access to based on what label they should have access to, the data-centric enforcement, and of course, the ability to define who can do what based on what condition, enforcing need to know and list privileges. Then you have compliance-related policies, enforcing segmentation of PII, PHI versus non-sensitive data or classified data, for example, in the government. The other beauty of Policy as Code is to let the machine become the bad guy instead of your people. It's well studied, for example, that if a system replies, no, you're not allowed to do something, the frustration is much less than if the same answer was given by one of your employees. It's less conflicts in your organization, but it's also less chance for mistakes or drifts. And drifts kill GitOps and DevSecOps, remember? You will find several options to enable your Policy as Code capability with open source or commercial solutions to enforce both your infrastructure as code, cloud policies, your DevSecOps pipeline policies, and of course, your application layer policies as well. Solutions like Open Policy Agent with companies like Stira and other commercial solutions like HashiCorp with Sentinel, Harness, Snyk, and many others bring tangible options to get this implemented across your organization. Let's take a look at what is Open Policy Agent. Open Policy Agent, or OPA, is an open source project for the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, CNCF, which is a general purpose policy engine that enables context-aware policy enforcement across your entire stack. Effectively, it decouples the policy decision-making from the policy enforcement. More importantly, it's technology agnostic. It works from SSH to databases to Kubernetes to any cloud provider. That enables portability so the same policies can be enforced across your entire stack in different solutions. They use a language called Rego, which is not a great and easy language, by the way, but they made it so it's flexible and agnostic. Then they use something called Gatekeeper, which is the enforcement capability for Kubernetes for teams using OPA. Now, compliance as code is as important to ensure that you can automate and document your current state and ensure you provide the right information to make the proper risk decisions. More importantly, if you're trying to do business with the US government or if you're running a government program, this is a must-do to get you to a continuous authority to operate. Check out our video on Continuous ATO as well. So let's take a look at Open Security Control Assessment Language, OSCAL. OSCAL was created by NIST in collaboration with industry as a set of formats expressed in XML or JSON or YAML. They enable security as code and compliance as code. These formats provide machine-readable representations for your catalog controls, control baselines, system security plans, and even your assessment plans and their results. Effectively, this enables you to create profiles based on your risk tolerance to select the cyber controls you want to be compliant with, and assess them and automate the generations of your system security plans to automatically document what is required for your various compliance audits. This provides you with real-time visibility and automation versus being stuck in time with outdated paperwork. More importantly, for the government, this enabled all these organizations to be accredited for use in government systems, whether it's for FedRAMP or traditional ATO or DevSecOps continuous ATO as well. Stay tuned for a follow-up video with a deep dive on NoScout. By using solutions like OPA, you avoid hard coding your policies into applications or solutions. Instead, you decouple the policy creation and the decision making from the enforcement. Whether it's in your cloud infrastructure, your CI/CD pipeline, your application, your service mesh, or your Kubernetes cluster. Good example of an interesting use of OPA alongside Gatekeeper on Kubernetes is to enable you, using the admission controller of Kubernetes, to decide if containers will be able to run on your cluster with decisions like provenance, signatures, the CVs found, etc. You can ensure that the YAML wasn't modified or tampered with to remove cyber-mandated enforcement like the injection of your service mesh sidecar proxy, for example. With very simple policy as code and templates, you can now enforce that, for example, a container with specific higher critical CVEs, maybe recent critical CV like log4j, would not be able to run on your stack, even would be altered to hot patch that containers to fix the CVE immediately. There you have it. Policy as code and compliance as code are an essential pillar of your GitOps and DevSecOps implementation to ensure you can enforce policy, security, and compliance across your organization and decouple the decision making from the enforcement. That provides you the real-time enforcement and, more importantly, the visibility to ensure you truly understand how your systems are architected and how these are truly behaving. Real-time dashboards, real-time enforcement, real-time visibility versus head in the sand, hope for the best, stuck in time compliance. Guess what? The latter is not security, just complacency.